interwebs, welcome to Let's Build Computers. We're taking a look at the Gigabyte Aorus 1080 Ti. This is the Xtreme Edition 11G. So this is one of the finest graphics cards on the market right now. This is going into a very special build that's been in progress in our shop for quite a while now. We've been waiting very avidly for this thing to come along, and here it is. So it's £150 more expensive than the bog standard 1080 Ti. A bog standard reference 1080 Ti is around about £650. This fella's going to set you back £800. So is it worth the extra money? Let's open it up and take a look at it. Some idiot slashed the box on this one, which I'm not very impressed about, but whatever. Right, so for £800, this presentation is looking pretty tasty already. What have we got in here? Okay, so we've got driver discs, the 4-year Aorus Care warranty. So you've got to register online to get this, but 4-year warranty is pretty sweet. So we've got a couple of quick start guides in here. Not interested in any of that right now. We do get an Aorus case badge as well. Pretty cool. So the computer this is going into also has an Aorus motherboard in it. So this is gonna fit in there and look really gorgeous. Okay, so that looks dangerously like a graphics card to me. Let's get that out and then we'll just check what else is in the box. Cool. It's fitted in there pretty nice. There we go. Put that to one side. I'm gonna make you guys wait. Alright, we've got a dual 6-pin to 8-pin adapter in there. And that's about our lot. So, not a huge amount of goodies in here. Yeah, not much in there to be honest. So it's not a Christmas box as I refer to it as, where you open it up and there's all kinds of presents and gifts and it feels like Christmas kind of thing. So yeah, not a huge amount in the box. That's boring. Let's move on and look at the card. Wow, look at you. You are huge. So this is the Aorus triple fan cooler, and that's very exotic actually. Let's bring the camera in just so you guys get a closer look at that. Okay, so as you can see, we've got this huge triple fan cooler. We've got the 2 blowers on the outside, and then we've got this interior one here that has a reverse bladed design. And if you look very closely, you can see that the fans actually practically overlap there. You can see they go right up, so they're extremely close. So there's a lot of crisscrossing going on to keep the fans as huge as possible and still keep the card compact. So yeah, a lot of fans going on there. Can we see what kind of heat pipe design have we got? We've got a row of heat pipes along there, and those are big fat heat pipes as well. So those are coming in right from the center to the outside, and then I can see a couple down through there as well. So we've got a few down the outside, so lots of heat pipes in this thing, which is good. Heat pipes are good. I'm not that interested in vapor chambers and stuff like that, because vapor chambers, they just spread the heat out along the bottom of the cooler, whereas heat pipes will actually carry the heat to the far edges and to the top of the cooler. They actually get the heat to spread out through the heat sink from across the sides and from the bottom to the top. Whereas the fancy vapor chamber stuff, that just spreads along the bottom of the heat sink, so it's not as good. Heat pipes are better. So I like big fancy heat pipe coolers. And obviously with these fans here as well, we've got really good coverage of airflow across the whole thing. So we'll be interested to see how loud those are as well, because obviously the problem with fans that are crisscross like that is you're going to get a chopping effect, which is going to make the fans seem slightly louder. But with more fans, you can run them slower. So we should see a good cooling effect overall here. So this all looks like it's going to light up as well, so we'll take a look at that later. On the side, we've got this big, huge, I'm going to have to back the camera off again because this thing's so enormous. We've got this huge sort of sticky outy Aorus bit here. So it really looks the part. This is all RGB. And we've got the fan stop LED there as well. And up the sides there, you can just see we've got twin 8-pin power connectors there as well. Those are kind of inaccessible. The heatsink sticks right out on this thing. So it looks like with these, you kind of have to bring your power over the top of the card or around from the side here. You can't bring it from underneath, which is where I usually like to bring my power cables. But that's not the end of the world. the backplate of this cooler. This backplate is probably doing a huge amount of cooling itself. We've got a copper core on the back of the GPU there. So that's going to be spreading a lot of the heat coming off of the back of the card out as well. So this is a functional backplate on this thing. It's not just for looks. However, I'd imagine that this is all going to light up as well, so it's also going to look cool. And then on the side, what have we got over here? We've got an internal HDMI connector there. That's super cool. So if you've got a front HDMI port on your case for VR and stuff like that, you can connect that internally to the graphics card, so you don't have to have a HDMI pass-through sticking out the back of your case. That's a really nice touch. That's cool. I like it, because those are becoming more and more popular these days. And then on the inside here, PCI Express 16 as usual. So what have we got in terms of sort of debugging and fancy stuff like that? Not seeing a huge amount of that. No, I'm not seeing any sort of debugging outputs on this thing. So they're probably hidden away behind this cooler. But you know, I mean, if you're going for bonkers high numbers like that, you're probably not using a stock cooler anyway. So so there's not a huge amount of extras. Anyone who watched my old 980 Ti Kingpin video will know that some of the more bonkers overclocking cards have got a lot of extra pinouts, so you can measure core GPU voltage and stuff like that. Don't seem to have those here. However, to be honest, let's face it, 99% of people who buy these cards ain't going to be using those anyway, so not really a huge loss. Awesome. Well, this is badass. Let's plug it into something and see what it looks like. So the build that this is going into is an i7 7700K with 32 gigs of Corsair DDR Platinum RAM and an Aorus Gaming 9 motherboard. So we've got a top-end system to test this thing with, and as you can see, the whole setup looks gorgeous. If you've got the Aorus motherboard and the Aorus graphics card, everything matches up really well, and you can have all those LEDs synchronized as well. Okay, so Gigabyte's control software for this card is called the Aorus Graphics Engine, which is all in capital letters, by the way. Everything is capital letters about this graphics card. So by default, as you can see on its home screen, it shows us the default clock profiles for it. Now I've got it in OC mode at the moment, where I've been testing its performance, but we've also got gaming mode, which is its standard setting. We've also got a silent profile as well, which will probably dial back the clocks. Let's just see what that puts it back to. So the standard is 1721, and in silent mode, yes, silent mode drops it right back to 1582, which I think is the stock clock for the 1080 Ti. And on that bit, those fans are going to stay right down on their absolute minimum setting all the time. So I'm going to leave that in OC mode because I've done some testing and I've found that, you know, never not OC. So yeah, those are the modes. We also have user mode, which we can do more work in the professional mode, where we can manually change the setup of this and set different profiles. So let's head back to home. We can also manually turn the fan start-stop auto mode on or off. So if you don't want the fan to turn off at idle, you can switch that off so the fans will always run. And you can't see it from this camera angle, but we do have a fan stop light there. So you can see at a quick glance through the window whether the fans are actually supposed to be running or not. So let's take a look at the LED setup. If we look in LED control, this is currently the default setup where it just slowly cycles through the spectrum. This is quite a nice color cycle actually. It's nice and soft and slow, which I quite like. A lot of the whole rainbow mode LEDs, they're a bit party disco for me, and I find it somewhat off-putting. Whereas on this, it's a really nice slow color cycle. We can of course just switch the LEDs off, just flat like that. And then we've got several other modes of control as well. So let's have a quick look through those. We've got consistent, where we can just specify any color in the spectrum. And we do seem to have really good color reproduction as well on this. The default red actually has a tiny, tiny little bit of green in it. So as you can see, it's got a slight orange tinge to it. We've also got just flat orange there. And then we've got, you know, any other color. Let's go green, or we can go blue, or we can go white as well. So if you just want maximum white, we get white, and it's a nice cool white as well, with probably just a little hint of blue in it, I would say. So yeah. And the nice thing as well is these boxes here, you can manually type in a color. So if you have a very specific color that you want to type in, you can do that also. And we have a brightness control as well, so you can manually adjust how intense the brightness is if you want to match it up to other LEDs in the computer. Because one problem that I've often seen is where certain components in the computer are at different brightness levels, and that's kind of annoying. So yeah. Then we've got the breathing effect, where we can specify a color, and it will pulse that on and off. So again, let's switch to green for the sake of green. And the breathing mode can also has an RGB option there, so it will fade in and out through different colors, which is kind of cool as well. Each time it breathes in, it's a different color. That's a nice effect. I like that. Likewise, we also have a speed control for any cycling effect like this. We've got the flashing, just because whatever. I don't know why you'd want that, or dual flashing maybe, where you've kind of got an electric kind of feel maybe. Monitoring, this is a really cool one. Monitoring, it will change the color based on GPU temperature, GPU utilization, or GPU fan speed. So that's a really nice touch, I like that. So if I set that to fan speed, apply, and then if we just quickly switch back into professional mode here and set let's just set manual speed of 45, apply. So now we've got orange, and if we whack that up to full, it suddenly turns an angry looking orange. Doesn't actually turn red though. So yeah, that's that. So let's reset to defaults there, and let's head back to LEDs. Let's have our overclocking profile. The loading screen is kind of annoying, but whatever. So yeah, the monitoring, that's a really nice feature. I like that. We've also got audio flashing, where you can have it flash in time to whatever audio is coming out of the computer. And then circling, this was the default setting. The only thing I have found with this is it seems to be very inconsistent. If I click on apply now, it kind of sort of, we've gone to green, and now as you can see, it's not actually circling anymore. So this software is kind of a little bit buggy, and you kind of have to bully it into doing what you actually want it to do. So it's not perfect, but whatever, it works. So if I set that, if I click on default now, it'll go to red, and as you can see, it's immediately started color cycling. But I haven't applied that setting, so who knows. The nice thing as well is that we've also got a Gigabyte Aorus motherboard in here, so we can also control the motherboard LEDs from the same software. With the same options, and there is a button there saying sync with other Gigabyte devices, so we can set it up so all the motherboard and the graphics card are in sync with each other. So that's a nice touch. I like that a lot as well. So yeah, the software is okay. So it's, yeah, if it wasn't for that weird kind of bugginess with applying settings, I would like it. However, it's just not quite spot on, and also it's the whole, it's very slow to respond. But I can live with it, and we can set the color cycling breathing, do the loading thing, and we've got color cycling breathing. No, we haven't, because again, you see what I mean? It's not saved the color cycle option; it's just gone to white. So the software, the functionality is good, but it's a little bit buggy. So maybe there's some other alternative software available for it. Who knows? But it's okay. But for me personally, I would, see, every time I click on apply, it forgets the rainbow color. So I don't know what that's all about. It's not bad though. Okay, so next let's talk about the fans. So we've got triple blowers on here, and you can just about see from the camera angle, we've got two here, and we've got one in the middle that actually overlaps with the other fans slightly. So during my testing of this graphics card, I found that the cooler was very pleasantly quiet, quite frankly. Even on the overclocking profile under full tilt, it was not noticeable at all. So let's just ramp the fans up just so you can see what kind of levels we've got. Now I'm not going to be able to, you're not going to be able to really hear this in any meaningful way, but we'll just have a quick look. So let's have a quick check at 20% fan speed. This is the kind of level that I would expect to see under gaming environments. So with that on, Start the fans. Alright, and that's inaudible. I can't actually hear those running. I'd actually doubt they turned on if it weren't for the fact that I can see them spinning on the screen. Okay, what about 50%? Okay, I can hear that the fans are running now, but they're excellently quiet. There's very little hum, there's very little whoosh. It's very nice. So and that's at 50%. What about 75%? Okay, now the fans are noisy. We've definitely passed a tipping point now. So those fans are definitely noticeable now. And what about 100%? And yeah, 100% it's noisy. However, while I was testing some custom overclocks on this card, I had the fans up at 100% just to make sure that wasn't causing me any problems. And it was able to keep this graphics card at about in the mid 50s, at 55, 56, while running Firestrike. So yeah, the cooler is very, very quiet under normal environments. And if you are thrashing the nuts off of this card, the cooler is amazingly high performance. So that is a very good balance to have. So yeah, overall, the cooler is excellent. Definitely thumbs up there. It's also worth noting that while we were under maximum speeds, I noticed that the back of the graphics card was burning hot to the touch. So that big backplate on the back of the card really does contribute to the cooling a considerable amount. So again, not just for show, every part of this graphics card is there because it improves performance. So yeah, very impressive. Right, so since we don't do many graphics cards reviews on this channel, I don't have a huge amount of stuff to compare it to, but we'll compare it to the 980 Ti Kingpin that I reviewed quite a while back, just to see how a high-end 1080 Ti compares against a high-end 980 Ti. Now, the Kingpin that I tested Firestrike on, that came in at the low 16,000s. I think I managed to get like 16,200 out of it with a mild overclock. The stock speed was the high 15,000s. Our default speed with the Aorus card on its stock settings in gaming mode is 19,784. So already we're just shy of 20,000. So this is smashing the big 980 Ti Kingpin that we last looked at. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to stick it on its overclocking profile, which puts it at nearly 200 megahertz over the stock speed of a 1080 Ti. And let's run the same test again, and we'll see what kind of speed we get then. Alright, so on the overclocking profile we've got 19988, so we've pushed it up a little bit, not very much though, that hasn't had a huge impact. So what we're going to do now, let's try seeing if we can push that up by putting the cooling system on panic mode. The thing with NVIDIA graphics cards, it's all about that boost clock, and to get up to the boost clock, you need to keep the temperature down. And this is why overclocking an NVIDIA graphics card is all about balance. You have to balance increasing the boost clock and the power available, setting, versus keeping the temperature down. Because if the temperature goes up, then it'll throttle back and you won't get the boost speed anyway. So with that in mind, let's give it the beans ourselves and see if we can break the big 20k. So let's take that up to, let's try 1777 first. This is another one of those overclocking programs that has sliders, but it doesn't allow you to move it with the keyboard or dial in a number, which is really annoying. Alright, that's 1777, let's try that. Let's leave everything else as is. Oh man, we dropped a bit. So this is why sometimes just shooting for higher boost clocks doesn't always work here. So what we need to do here, it's not achieving that high boost speed. What we need is a higher base clock and a lower boost clock, but the Aorus tuning utility doesn't actually give me those options. We're still getting the highest overall score with the standard one, so let's try giving it a little bit more. This is probably going to be my last attempt for 20k because I'm getting bored. 19915. That's still not 20k and it's still slower than the previous one. Just for interest's sake, let's just bring back the stock overclocking profile and just see if we can get that 19950 back again. Because if we get another straight 19950 on the OC profile, then yeah, fine. Hey, 20k! So interestingly, this is back on the overclocking profile that we previously looked at and got 19950 on. So running the test a couple of times will maximize your results, and in addition to that, notice how we actually ended up getting the highest score on slightly lower clock speeds. So with NVIDIA overclocking, higher clock speeds are not always better. Sometimes you've got to back off a little bit you've got to go slower in order to go faster. So we're going to leave this as it is now. I've hit the big 20k, I'm happy with that. That's a decent score, and it proves that the overclocking profile on this graphics card is entirely solid. And to be honest, you don't need to fiddle around with it. Buy the card, stick it on the overclocking profile, leave it alone. So the conclusion is that this is a solid graphics card. The price on it does seem to vary depending on where you're looking. When I started recording this review, it was £150 over the stock. But now it's dropped down and you can find it at sort of about £100 over standard, or sometimes a little bit lower than that, which actually makes it very, very good value for money, given the fact that none of the other 1080 Ti's have got this kind of clock speed out of the box. And considering that that overclocking profile is so reliably quick, it's a bit of a no-brainer if you ask me. I'm not a huge fan of the chunkiness of the design. However, if you're not worried about the looks too much, or if you like the chunky looks, this is pretty much the most obvious choice for a 1080 Ti, and I highly recommend it. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I will see you all next time. Goodbye for now.